Have you enjoyed this series? Good. I'm glad. It's been a help to me, and hopefully a help to us as a church body. I do have one final wrap-up message kind of planned for a couple weeks from now that will tie it all back together in the context of Romans 12 and review everything that we've talked about and kind of put all these individual puzzle pieces together. But tonight we're going to look at the gift of mercy. So Romans 12, verse 6, having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, whether prophecy, let us prophesy according to the proportion of faith, or ministry, let us wait on our ministering, or he that teacheth on teaching. And see, you can see how practical this is, how simple the instruction here is. He's saying, if you're gifted in this area, then do this. If you have been gifted with teaching, then teach. If you are gifted with exhortation, then you need to be exhorting people. He that giveth, let him do it with simplicity. Don't complicate it. Do it with liberality. He that ruleth with diligence. Make sure that you're diligent about it, not being lazy about it, but use that gift to its fullest potential. And he that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. And that's what we're going to look at here tonight. I guess we've already prayed, so we'll just dive right in. You know, the more I grow, not only spiritually, but just as a man, as a person, the more that I grow, the more I admire people with mercy. As a teen boy, you know, teenagers and men in general struggle with pride, and I was, when I was younger, I didn't have much mercy. You know, I was proud and more self-centered and sarcastic, and I can still be that way sometimes, unfortunately, but I think having kids probably helped knock a lot of that out for me. When you hold that little thing in your arms and you realize maybe for the first time what unconditional love truly means, that can help fill you with a little bit of mercy. And I find myself growing in, hopefully, in the type of mercy that I remember my mom showing when I was growing up. You know, several people have expressed to me, as I've shared this with them, that they see mercy in me, and I don't score very high in the test, to be honest with you. I don't, I don't have a whole lot of the characteristics we're going to talk about tonight, so I'm not too sure, but I do desire that. And the Bible says that we are to desire spiritual gifts, doesn't it? That there is this aspect of Christ-likeness that we should aspire to and we should seek to grow in, even if it's not one of our primary gifts. And somebody with this gift just has a heart for people. They just have a special tenderness, especially towards those who are hurting. I remember my mom was just the best nurse when we were sick. You know, there's this new commercial, this Campbell's soup commercial, and I told some of you about it, but I can relate to it because there's this poor sick man, you know, lying on the couch, and you know how us guys kind of milk it sometimes, and he's on the couch, and his wife is getting ready to go out, maybe to run some errands or something, and he goes, "My mom always used to make me soup when I was sick." And she says, "Oh, really? Okay." And like maybe she's going to go, she goes into the other room like she's going to go get some maybe. And she comes back and throws the phone at him. You better call your mom. And she walks out. Yeah, I feel that. I feel his pain. But Mom always, she babied us when we weren't feeling well. So when I'm sick now and I need some pity, I don't go to Karen. This isn't her gift. I call my mom. I say, "Mom." And she knows right away, "Oh, you're sick, aren't you?" "Yeah, I'm sick." And so in the New Testament, the one who displayed this gift best, other than Christ, would probably be the Apostle John. The idea of mercy and love tie together very, very closely. He valued love highly. He often referred to himself as the one whom Jesus loved. That was the title that meant a lot to him, that he was content with nothing more than to know that he was loved by the Lord Jesus Christ. And many of the great passages on love come from John. Why don't we look at a couple of them? John 15. Let's look at a few of the passages that John wrote. John chapter 15 and verse 13. Actually, I'll back up to verse 12. This is my commandment, that ye love one another, as I have loved you. This is coming from the Lord Jesus. And he says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. What a definition of love. Turn back to John 3. This is probably what you thought of when you thought of John and love. John 3:16. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. If that doesn't speak mercy, what does? That is mercy. That is God's mercy, not to condemn us, but to save us. Look at 1 John. Go forward towards the book of Revelation. But the first epistle of John, chapter 3. Ironically, it's also a 3:16 verse. 1 John 3:16, hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. Look at the next chapter, chapter 4, verse 7. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. And all through that chapter, it's a great chapter on love. Down in verse 19, it says, we love him because he first loved us. Back in verse 11, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. It's a great chapter about that. And sometimes people, especially men, are uncomfortable talking about love, you know, that they would read a chapter like this and say, oh, it's all mushy-gushy, you know, or sometimes men would view the gift of mercy as being more of a feminine type of gift. And we don't reveal our emotions all that easily sometimes. But there are a lot of men who are very tough on the outside. They kind of have a shell. And then on the inside, they're very tender, very kind, and gentle. And you think about the Apostle John. He was no sissy. Turn to Mark 3. James and John were brothers, and they grew up as fishermen. They were strong. They knew how to handle the elements. They were outdoorsy guys. You know, we often view Peter as being that rough, tough fisherman, but so were James and John. They were all tough guys. Look at the nickname that Jesus has for James and John. Mark 3:17. And James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, and he surnamed them Boanerges, which is the sons of thunder. Those are not girly men, okay? The sons of thunder. John was every bit a man's man, but he was also tender-hearted. He was also very merciful. And so somebody with the gift of mercy just has this sense of unconditional love for people. It comes easily to them. And so they get along easily with people. And those with the gift of mercy sometimes make up for some of the abrasiveness between other members of the church. You know, sometimes it just takes somebody that loves everybody to help us get along, and they want to eliminate tension. They love it when people are at peace, and they try to promote that love for one another. So let me give you some of the characteristics of this gift, a gift of mercy. Those with the gift of mercy have a great ability to feel the joy or pain of others. They have this heightened sense of awareness, kind of like this, you know, with the gift of prophecy and teaching, there's like this antenna for truth. Like, is that right? Is that accurate? And you know, you're sensitive to those things. Someone with the gift of giving, there's a sensitivity towards needs, and you just notice these things. Well, someone with the gift of mercy has a sensitivity towards emotional pain or distress. They notice it, whereas other people might just gloss over or not even think about it. Someone with the gift of mercy is tuned in to others' emotional state. And they might come up to you and ask, how are you doing? Just to get you to open up. But they don't even have to ask. Okay, they already know how you're doing. They can tell whether you are in pain or not. And they'll approach you about it. And when the person with mercy just hates to see somebody in need, but their concern is primarily towards inner hurts. It's not just the material. You know, maybe the person with the gift of giving sees those material needs more on the outside, but the one with the gift of mercy sees the inner needs, the pain, the hurt that's going on. They see that maybe before anybody else does, and they seek to meet it right away. And so with mercy, it's that inward emotional need that they're sensitive to, and so they're often drawn to those who are lonely, to those who are troubled, fearful. It's a necessary gift in the church. It's when you are hurting, when you are going through something, it's hard to be around people who are just task-oriented and kind of cold emotionally. You need somebody that when you're struggling with emotionally with a loss or something going on, there's a period of time where somebody might want to come up and give you a pep talk, give you a lecture, try to help you out. And at that moment, you don't really need that. At that moment, what you really need is somebody just to give you a hug and to let you know, hey, I'm there for you. I'm praying for you. The words aren't really all that important. It's just somebody that's there, a shoulder to cry on, or someone who will just be there with you. And so the person with the gift of mercy is like that. Number two, they are able to identify with others and to experience the emotions they're going through. So the word for this is empathy. Someone with the gift of mercy has much empathy. There's just this desire to be there for somebody who is hurting. Turn back to Romans 12. Drop down to verse 15. Romans 12 and verse 15. It says, rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. That's a great verse for those with the gift of mercy. They're able to do that. And sometimes there will be someone who has gone through what you're experiencing, and they can be a help. And that's one reason why God allows us to go through difficult times, is so that we can be there for other people in similar situations. But one with the gift of mercy doesn't even need to have gone through it. They already can feel your pain. They already can empathize with what you're going through because of this God-given gift that they have. Thirdly, someone with the gift of mercy desires to alleviate the pain. They just want the hurt to end, to go away. It grieves them to see somebody suffer. They want people to be well and to be happy. Have you ever had a really great nurse at a hospital where you can tell they're just compassionate and they have this bedside manner where they truly, truly care? You're not just it's not just a job to them. Where they love people and they hate to see you hurt. And they're not there to judge you or give you a lecture or anything. They just want to help. That a lot of times people with the gift of mercy will gravitate towards occupations in hospitals and doctors, sometimes with counseling and so on, but that's more so with exhortation. But somebody just with a good bedside manner. I've told you a little bit about the mess that my brother had to journey through down there in Kansas, all that stuff in the church. And at the same time that they were going through these legal battles, they learned from the doctor that the little girl that they were expecting likely had some very significant health problems. And they were very concerned about her size in the womb. And they told my brother and his wife that she might not survive. And even if she did survive, she's going to have serious complications and so on. And so all of this just kind of fell on them all at the same time. And, my dad and I, we're more the exhorter type. And so we looked at it and said, wow, the Lord is really, really putting them through the fire. He's really doing something in their lives. He's going to build Todd. He's going to build their family. He's going to strengthen their church. You know, they're going to go through the fire and they're going to come out stronger. I don't know how this is going to end, but God's doing something. And you know, that's true. That was true. It is true. But it wasn't exactly what Todd needed to hear at that moment, was it? You know what really helped him? When my mom and dad just went down there and they spent a few weeks with them. And they were just there. And when it seemed like the whole world and everything was going against them, he just needed to know that his family loved him unconditionally. That's that mercy where sometimes we just need that. And of course, the whole time, you know, my mom, being more merciful, she's not so concerned about what's going to happen on the other side of this trial, but she just wants all the pain to go away, you know, just wants this trouble to disappear and just be done with all of this, that they could make it through. So those with other spiritual gifts might reach out to someone who's hurting in different ways. You know, I mentioned the exhorter will want to point out the positives and say, you know what, this is okay. You're going to make it through this, and God has a plan in all of this. The giver is going to try to meet whatever material needs that there are. Are you facing any hardships, any bills associated with all of that? That's the giver, right? The minister will come along and say, hey, can we bring you a meal? Can I do something? Can I help you in any way, shape, or form? The ruler is probably going to organize all those meals and make sure that everything falls, that nothing slips through the cracks. And the prophet is going to find out who's right and who's wrong, and he's going to encourage you and say, you're doing right. Just hang in there. You're on the right side. You know, that's the role of the prophet and so on. But in those moments of grief and pain, one of the essential ingredients that must be there to help is one with the gift of mercy, who may not have to say or do anything, that can just be there to empathize with you in your hurt, with open arms of love. And you see, the spiritual gifts are complementary. They're designed by God to work together, to help one another. But some tend to clash if we're not careful, if we're not being led by the Holy Spirit. There are certain ones that match up better, and there are certain ones that tend to clash. And one of those is those with the gift of mercy will often clash with the exhorters. Okay, because the exhorter sees benefit through suffering. You're going to grow. You know, God's doing something. God's growing you. Whereas the one with the gift of mercy thinks that is very insensitive, that they are hurting right now. You know, that they don't need this right now. And so that can lead to some disagreements there. And so that's where understanding these gifts that differ in the church can help us maintain unity. It's not good to be ignorant of these things. If you keep them in mind, you can understand where other people are coming from. And just remember, like, oh yeah, you know, he's the exhorter. You know, he's going to say that stuff. And oh yeah, that's the mercy person. And I guess just got to be patient. Just got to be kind and let the one with the gift of mercy have their role. Remember Job? He called his friends miserable comforters because they all had a sermon for him, you know, and they were all wrong, by the way, in their accusations. You know, when they were his best comforters, when they came and they just sat with him for a week, and they just didn't say anything, and they just were with him by his side. That was good comfort for him. And it's always interesting to watch how people try to help someone who is hurting. A lot of us are very uncomfortable around emotional pain and distress. You know, you see somebody who's maybe a fact-driven teacher, and they dwell in the realm of truth and facts and equations, and emotions. They're kind of cold in that area, to be honest, a lot of times, us teachers. And so you see a teacher and somebody comes and there's just this emotional outburst, and maybe they're like, oh boy, you know, I don't know how to handle that. And so they avoid the whole situation awkwardly, or, you know, come up here, Carl, we'll do a man hug. All right, here's how the teacher does when you're hurting. They're there. It'll be okay, you know, and then kind of gets so it's real awkward, you know. They're there. Don't cry. I'll be there for you. You be over there for me, you know. And, yeah. So merciful people are huggers, just generally. They're good at showing affection, showing love with physical affirmation, and that's just part of their gifting. And number 4, those with the gift of mercy are very tender towards helpless or hurting. You think of like children or maybe even animals. People think helpless, the most helpless among us. These are the people that start orphanages, all right? Their hearts just break for needy children to the point where they have to do something for them. We had a children's home that we were familiar with down there in Tampa, and these kids are just sweet, you know, and they live there at the children's home, and they go out and they sing for churches, and they introduce the ministry and everything. And I'm telling you, when you see these little kids and just their smiles on their face and stuff, you're like, I want to adopt them all, you know. It's just that mercy comes through. And, you know, there's some preachers that I can think of that just exemplify this, and they just have such a huge heart for people. But one with the gift of mercy reaches out, even if the end doesn't turn out so nice. They look at, like, say, a homeless person on the side of the street, and their heart aches for them. Somebody with the gift of prophecy might be a little bit more cynical, like, well, okay, how did they get to that position? Are they really homeless? Are they really in need? You know, and experience is taught to be a little bit more cautious about those things. The person that is gifted with mercy doesn't even think about all those scenarios. All they see is a person who is hurting. That's all they see. And there's that compulsion, that desire to help them. It's unconditional. Are you one who would scoop up a poor little kitten in the cold? You know, you see one that's out there abandoned and suffering or whatever, and you'd scoop that up and say, oh, I've got to give it a home, give it some milk and so on. Does it bother you if you see something out in the cold or hungry? My dad, he never liked indoor animals, still doesn't do indoor stuff, and but sometimes he would travel for work, and in the wintertime he'd be traveling, and you know what my mom would do? She would say, oh, it's so cold out, Danny, he needs some warmth, the poor little thing. And so she'd bring him into the entryway and set up like a kid's gate there and stuff so he couldn't get away, and wanted to just Dad wouldn't let her when he was home, but her heart broke, you know, to see, oh, the poor little puppy, you know, is so cold out there. That kind of goes along with it. It doesn't always. We want to focus more on people than animals here, but I'm just giving you some characteristics that are common. Fifthly, those with the gift of mercy are very sensitive to statements and actions that may hurt others. So if someone does or says something towards someone that they love, and it seems insensitive or it seems critical, they can react very angrily. And this does come up in churches where sometimes speaking the truth is not nice. My pastor used to tell a story about a couple who were just great members, great givers, everything. They were just plugged in. But the man's aunt came to town and happened to be on the week when they were observing the Lord's Supper. And he knew the doctrine of the church. He knew their position on closed communion and everything. But he asked Pastor, would it be all right if she came and just, you know, came along? We don't want to leave her out or anything. And she can come and take part in our service. And he said, no, I'll show you again, but this is what the Bible teaches, that the Lord's Supper is for the members only of the local church, and so we can't do that. And so the man got offended because it could possibly exclude and maybe hurt his aunt's feelings, and they end up leaving the church over that whole ordeal. Because they can you see how the gift of mercy, if it's not balanced with some of these other gifts, and it's not governed by the Spirit, that it could be misused? You know, sometimes during the preaching, the one with the gift of mercy can become very uncomfortable if they, not for themselves necessarily, but if they can think of somebody else in the congregation who might get hurt or offended by what's being said. They might totally agree with the truth of it, but would rather it go unsaid than to be spoken in a way that could hurt. And so the motto of the person with the gift of mercy might be, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. You know, don't hurt people. But like I said, sometimes truth isn't nice. You know, we try to be gentle about it. We try to be, you know, as kind as possible. But sometimes truth is just that way. So number 6, someone with the gift of mercy may be highly vulnerable to feeling emotional pain. Part of the reason they can empathize so easily with others is that they have probably experienced a lot of pain in their own lives. They might be a little more sensitive, a little more easily hurt. You might say that they are thinner skinned, and the sensitivity for others is good, but we have to make sure that we're willing to accept truth even if it doesn't come across in the most loving of ways. So don't be too vulnerable there. Number 7, those with the gift of mercy have a great need for friendship. They cannot function well without close, loyal friends. Some people are fine as loners. Any of you in here okay just kind of being a loner? A couple of you? All right. I tend to be okay that way. I like people, but I'm fine by myself too. Not so with the gift of mercy. There's all this emotional energy, you know, inside that needs to be vented or needs to be invested in somebody else. It doesn't mean that they're extremely outgoing. Not always. Sometimes merciful people are very introverted, but they need to have a few very close friendships that they can pour, you know, their lives into one another. Close is the key there, and they usually have just a few extremely tight friends to whom they are fully loyal, and you gotta watch out, because even if those friends start leading them in a way that is wrong, they cannot bear to lose that friend because they are so closely invested with that person. So if you have the gift of mercy, you get along very easily with people, but probably not somebody who has a critical spirit. Okay, you'd avoid somebody like that. You just want to be around nice, happy people. Number 8, merciful people measure love and acceptance with closeness. If they don't feel emotionally close to someone, they feel that friendship is shallow. If someone with the gift of mercy is married, and you look at the marriage, they may go through a time when they're just busy or hectic or whatever, and there might be nothing wrong in the relationship, but if they haven't had a good heart-to-heart in a long time, they can begin to feel very worried about the state of the relationship. They don't feel close like they did before, and so they feel like some of the love has disappeared. You know, that it worries them when they don't sense that closeness, and they can begin to focus on the negative and worry about the future of the friendship or even the future of the marriage or the relationship. While in the mind of the other person, everything's fine. You know, we've just been busy lately. Do you see how there's that difference there? Ninthly, those with the gift of mercy are reluctant to speak against any person. Again, if it's not nice, don't say anything at all. But here's the thing, regardless of what they have done. Reluctant to speak out against them regardless of what they have done. They just don't want to hurt them. And this really plays out at home, where you can see like a child has been defiant or disobedient and needs to be disciplined, but somebody with the gift of mercy has an extremely hard time confronting and executing that discipline. Usually in the home, there's one that's more of the disciplinarian, right? And then there's one that's more lenient or more merciful. It was that way in our home. I mean, my mom, she would discipline when she needed to. She definitely was spirit-led in her gift of mercy. She could put the fear of God in us too. But she didn't, it wasn't her first instinct, like maybe it was Dad's, to discipline. Most homes have that. And there aren't a lot of marriages where both people are strong in the gift of mercy, but where that happens, watch the children, because nobody is reining them in. Nobody is disciplining. Nobody has a heart to do it. And so they end up a lot more spoiled than they ought to be. Most of the time, you've heard it said that opposites attract. Okay, that's true even in Christian homes. That someone with the gift of mercy is often drawn to someone with, say, the gift of prophecy. They're on polar extremes because they just complement one another well. Or they are drawn to somebody with the gift of ruling because they crave that strong leadership, that right and wrong, that they balance each other out. So the one with the gift of prophecy, they just say what needs to be said. Leave it at that. The one with the gift of mercy comes along and kind of heals those wounds and helps the whole thing out. The ruler just does what needs to be done, regardless of people's feelings. The one with the mercy brings a little humanity into that relationship and reminds the person that you need to look out for people, you need to love people, and so there is a balance there. You know which apostles made probably the best team? Peter and John. They were always together. In the Gospels, in the book of Acts, you see Peter and John side by side, the prophet and the merciful. And they just complemented one another perfectly. And so that's a good thing. That's wonderful. So quickly, here are a couple of the misuses and some warnings for those with the gift of mercy. Here's the biggest one, I would say. There's a tendency, and you need to be careful not to be gloomy. When you are emotional, if you're an emotionally invested person, you can easily get burdened down with sadness. You've got your own emotions you're dealing with, and you're taking on all these other people's concerns and sadness, and it just kind of piles up upon you. And depression can be a very real struggle for someone with the gift of mercy. And you need to fight that and ask the Lord to help you. What does our verse in Romans 12:8 say about the gift of mercy? This is very interesting. The end of the verse 8. He that showeth mercy with what? He that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. That's the admonition to somebody with the gift of mercy. That you are to do so with a spirit of cheerfulness, to realize that simply being emotional is not a spiritual gift, okay? But being able to come alongside and help those who are hurting is. So in order to show others mercy, you have to have your own emotions under control, under the control of the Holy Spirit. And so the command here is that you really cannot show mercy if you yourself are overcome with this gloomy sadness. You need to know how to encourage yourself in the Lord and with a cheerful spirit be able to help others do the same thing. Another one is tolerating evil. And this is you've probably caught on to this, read between the lines a little bit as we go. But don't gloss over sin. Don't gloss over doctrinal error just for the sake of getting along. If you've got the gift of mercy, you need to love others enough to take a hard stand against sin, and especially when it shows up in the lives of those you love. You need to be discerning. You need to learn to stand up when someone is not speaking the truth, and that's why it's good when the merciful can be complemented by those with prophecy, because they learn boldness. They learn how to speak up and say what needs to be said, even if it doesn't feel good. If this evil and sin is in the lives of your kids, learn to be firm. Remember, Proverbs says, he that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. Betimes means early and as often as needed. All right? If you truly love your kids, you must be firm with them. Also, leaning on emotions versus reason. God made someone with the gift of mercy to be aware of their feelings and to be aware of the feelings of other people, but that doesn't mean you should let your emotions lead. We talked last Wednesday night how emotions can be unpredictable, irrational, and can even lead you away from what you know is true. You can feel something that's totally not in line with reality. Listen, God gave us truth, and He gave us a mind to know what is true. And it's okay to feel. It's good to feel. But don't follow those feelings. Follow the reasoning that God gave you to be able to follow His Word. Another misuse is shortcutting God's purposes in people's lives. Don't be so quick to relieve somebody's pain before you take time to consider what God is trying to do through it. You know, the exhorters may bug the fire out of you by always seeing the good in everything, but you need to know when it's time to comfort and when it's time to let someone just go through the hardships and let God do some stuff. You need to lean upon those exhorters for that. Failing to submit to authority. This can actually happen with the gift of mercy, and it seems contradictory because those with mercy are often more easygoing and more yielding rather than confrontational. But being somebody who is in authority and somebody who is leading, that often requires making tough decisions. You understand that leadership requires tough decisions sometimes that isn't going to please everybody. And when somebody with the gift of mercy senses that the decision of the leader has hurt somebody, that they can bristle at that rather than submit to the authority. Also, being too forward in their desire to minister to others. Okay, you want to minister to somebody in pain? That's good. That's how God built you, you know? That's what you're supposed to do. But know your boundaries. Know when to be there for people in their pain and when to back off and give them space. You know, be available is the key. Sometimes somebody needs a visit, sure. But it doesn't always have to be a 4-hour visit. You don't always have to be there for them. If somebody's up in the hospital and they're not feeling well, they probably need to rest. Go pop in, show them that you love them, visit them, talk with them a little bit, and then get out of there. You ladies who have had babies, and people are coming all day long, to visit and to see the baby. Sometimes you're just like, I just want a nap. I just want to sleep and rest. So know the boundaries of that. Maybe somebody needs a hug, but maybe they don't. And know the difference there. It takes some discernment. Also, failing to note, and this is important, failing to note when acts of mercy are misinterpreted as acts of affection, romantic affection. I told you that merciful people are huggy people. They like to express emotion physically. And because of the raw emotion that is often displayed and the physical reassurance that goes along with that, acts of mercy have a way of crossing the line of what is appropriate if you're not careful. And, there's that desire for closeness. Remember, we talked about closeness. And if somebody with the gift of mercy doesn't feel close to their spouse at home, they're going to seek out that closeness someplace, all right? And so this mercifulness can lead into something that is terribly inappropriate and that can be used to even justify a sinful action. And so know what is appropriate, what is right. Be merciful. If you're a woman and you have the gift of mercy or you want to be merciful to other women, okay? And just be appropriate there. And men, show mercy to other guys. The man hug, that was appropriate, wasn't it? They're there, Guys, it's kind of like smack you on the shoulder. That's all that needs to be said right there. I'm there for you, man, But just keep it appropriate. Counseling situations like that where somebody's in pain and seeking answers and stuff, that can cause a mess real quickly. So be on guard. And as always, look to Jesus. Look to Jesus for the example of mercy. He was the epitome of mercifulness. How many times did it say that Jesus was moved with compassion upon somebody? He goes to the tomb of Lazarus and he weeps there at the tomb of Lazarus. And people have debated and talked about why he wept and so on. Hey, he was merciful, okay? He was merciful. Jesus could get in touch with his emotions. He could feel the pain of other people. He knew how to be compassionate and how to be merciful and see their need and the emotional needs as well as the outward material ones. But always his goal was that people would be reconciled to God and that they would experience his love, that unconditional love. And again, for God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Remember in Luke 19:10, for the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. That's mercy. That's the greatest expression of mercy and love. Not to overlook people's sin, but to point out their sin and draw them to a merciful, loving God. That is true mercy, friends. And then with a Spirit-filled cheerfulness, to be able to show that same mercy to those in your life that you love and that you care about. We need mercy, don't we? We do. We need more of it. I need more of it. We need to be able to hurt when others are hurting and rejoice when they are rejoicing. But let's keep it tempered, because emotions can be a wild ride sometimes. And we've got to make truth paramount in our lives and balance all of these gifts out. And we'll talk about that maybe a little bit more in a couple of weeks, how they all kind of fit and work together as a unit. And so I hope that this helps you to understand the gift of mercy. Maybe have you thought in your mind somebody in your life, somebody you know, that has this, and it's very evident that they are this way, and it helps you understand them. It'll help you and hopefully it'll help you equip them to better minister too. To be able, like if you're an exhorter, for instance, and you see somebody who's hurting, and you might say, you know what, I know from experience I'm not good in that situation. Grab the one with mercy and say, hey, get over there. I know you don't know them real well, but they need somebody right now. And you can be a blessing in that way also. All right? Well, let's pray. Father, thank you for this gift of mercy that you have given to the church. And